Good. All right. Thanks, Rusty and Jennifer, for joining me here today. So, for those of you that are listening in, can you just briefly describe your guys' operation, where you're from, and then we'll jump into a few questions here.
Sure. Okay. So we, Rusty and Jennifer Olson, we're in Garner, Iowa, north central Iowa. We farm currently around just shy of 1,500 acres of row crops. Currently 250 of that is certified organic. The rest is a corn, soybean, actually fairly heavy in corn on corn. We do a lot of hog manure. We do our own umbilical manure application. We do our own tiling. We do a decent amount of custom work, not as much as we used to. Kind of backed off on that when we realized that custom work isn't always seems like you wear out equipment faster than you pay it off. But just try to focus more on the operation. Like I said, we're Jennifer and I have been married since 2009. We have a daughter that she's born in 11. She's 10 years old and going into 5th grade. And we were previously farming with my parents. Just recently made a huge land transaction, purchased my parents' farmland, and I'm sure we can get into that more if you'd like to, but we are farming full time. So that is our occupation.
And you guys have been, I believe, in Legacy Farmer for roughly 7 months now. Or 6-7 weeks. Sorry.
So when did we start?
Has it been that much?
Let's see here, May, late May, early June, I think. Yeah. I was flaming corn the day we joined. I remember that. So corn was V5, whatever that was, May, something late May.
So maybe a couple months, 2-3 months. Yeah. So awesome. So guys, what I want to ask you first is, what was really not working in life and business before joining Legacy Farmer?
Well, as I stated before, we were sailing on a ship that had no direction. We didn't know our numbers. We didn't know what direction this farming operation was going. My parents could never really say exactly what they wanted to do. And I mean, they were not running the operation per se, where I was basically financing their portion of the operation through my bank. And that didn't work. We were handling all of the inputs for them, and that wasn't working well because it was very hard. I mean, not that they didn't want to pay us back. It was just nobody kept track of the numbers well enough to know who owed each other what, and grain checks weren't getting deposited in the right accounts, and everything was just snowballing into an absolute disaster where loans were getting rolled on the next year's operating. And the term, well, if we can just break even, was the most common phrase that came out of our mouths. And that was a struggle. I heard Jay say it once, if you say we're just going to break even, that's never the case, because you don't just break even. You've always got a loss.
And just with some of the things about banking, like working with our bank and knowing your numbers, the cash flow, your profit and loss statements, and just
cash flow,
all of this stuff, like our financial statements with the bank were getting updated once a year. And it just seemed like you tried to go sit and talk to your banker about, like, how can we make this better for us? And there was never really like a solution to what we were needing. They just kept borrowing you more money just to get you by. But like, there wasn't ever like, hey, let's like really take a look at your numbers. It was always us reaching out to them, not them reaching out to us. And so,
what they get, they're busy, but it's, they're in the business of loaning money, and they were always good to us, but there was always that gut wrenching, what if we don't get financed this year? What are we going to do?
And that was like with Rusty, he struggled a lot with at night. He wasn't sleeping, and I would wake up and I would see the glow next to me, and it was the calculator was on, and always crunching numbers at like 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. He was always crunching numbers and not being able to sleep. And he's like, are we going to make it? I don't know if we're going to make it. It was just like one big roller coaster, because it was like good days, like when the numbers made sense to him, then he was like on a high. And then like the next day he was at the lowest of lows. So like it was just all over the place.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy, like Rusty, you have, just like watching my dad, you have one bad day with the markets that go down, like everything that felt like was going good and like share that for you. But like when that external stuff happens, we can't control markets, but that weighs so heavy on us when those bad days happen or market prices drop. It just sinks us mentally.
Yep. And that was one of the areas that we had to fix. And we'll get into that more with why we joined Legacy Farmer is one of the multiple things that we decided to change in our operation in my life and my wife's life, and is getting the right people. I mean, employ people that can help you, and it does. I'm not just talking about actual labor employees. I'm talking about people that can help you on the numbers side, your physical health, your mental health, your financial, and your just life coaches. I mean, there's so many people that can help you out there if you just actually seek them out. The gal that I work with on grain marketing changed my whole outlook on grain marketing. I don't get worried when the market's on the downhill side. I try to figure out how to capture profits off of it. And that's what we do now. So we make money when we're not selling corn. That's got to be the plan.
100%. And just having a plan in place, right, is where a lot of farmers struggle at, just kind of hoping and praying that things are going to work out, and that just doesn't work. So I want to kind of tie that into, so since coming into Legacy Farmer, what's really changed for you guys?
Positive outlook. When I used to sit up all, like my wife said, the glow, I'd sit there with that damn calculator on my phone, 4 o'clock in the morning, just stewing over numbers and going over and over, because I didn't have anything written down. I just always had it in my head. And, you'd write it down on a piece of paper, then you lose a piece of paper, And now I've got this farm metrics on my phone, on my laptop, on my desktop, and I can click on any time because it's all on the Google, and I can pull it up anywhere I'm at, and I can adjust my numbers. We can adjust the cash flow. We can adjust as checks come in, operating note gets paid down, we adjust it, and I know exactly where I'm at. I love knowing what my debt to equity ratio is. I love knowing what my numbers are in that balance sheet and what my percentages are. And it gives me confidence. It gives me an understanding. I know that we're sitting very well on as far as our balance sheet looks, but when I can pull up my cash flow and say, hey, things are good. Yeah, okay, we better adjust this a little bit. It hasn't rained for a month. Okay, maybe you better take these bushels down a little bit, but the price is adjusting. So when you're sitting there, all you're doing is worrying about the grain markets are going up, but I don't have a crop to sell. Well, you got to put the numbers in there and look at it and say, okay, well, our bottom line hasn't changed. We're still good here. So that's the peace of mind that I have that keeps me moving every day.
Yeah. Well, and it's been the truth and the facts of the numbers that we've talked about. Like the numbers are there. Like that is what it is, but it also gives you that part of the business, that certainty and that confidence, to where you know that you feel like you have the numbers taken care of, your position, so you can go out and produce at the highest level that you need to. You're not sitting there, like you said, laying awake at night trying to punch in the calculator. Is this going to work? Is this not going to work? Okay, this is the facts of where we're at today. Now, how can I go out, or how do I need to go out and produce to do that $200 to $300 to $400 an hour work? Like that's the real stuff that guys are stuck doing, the $15 to $20 an hour work themselves, because one, they're just, it keeps them away from the really, honestly, the anxiety and the unknowingness of their overall position. But just to feel like for once you have things taken care of, you have the numbers taken care of, know your position, right?
No, and you asked what another major perk of Legacy Farmer is, the network of people that are on here that are in. You're saying, we're in a little bit different position than several of the people that are on here. We kind of came in a little bit, we made a lot of advancements on our farming operation, and we did a lot of had a lot of great things in the works before we joined Legacy Farmer. Legacy Farmer has helped direct some of our decisions and what we did, and moving forward with legality, setting up other corporations and stuff like that, which we're working on and planning our estate and life insurance policies. But just having that network, it's almost reassuring to me. And I shouldn't say it, it's hard to say this, but you hear other people's stories and say, dude, I've been there. I know what you're talking about. And you kind of just want to reach out and give them a hug or something, because I know what those days feel like, and you don't wish that on your worst enemy, But having that network where you can talk to people, and even I have bad days, we all have bad days, but it's kind of fun to sit in that boardroom chat and say, okay, I know what he's talking about, and let's not lie, it could happen again, So.
I think it's also bringing out just being honest with yourself.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because if you're not, then it just kind of snowballs into everything else, like knowing your numbers, but it's also like how you, even just like
the training,
simple,
the code.
Yeah, like
the code.
And we still need to learn a little bit more about that. We just haven't had time, and we've been trying to make time, and that's something that we're looking forward to after harvest, like to really we've watched the videos and things like that, but like the thing that I see with Rusty too is like, I've always known him to go like 500 miles an hour and trying to put out like 20 different fires at one time. And now he's getting to be more organized, not only just with the metrics and like, but like he's kind of decluttering a lot of other things in his life that have like been beneficial from this and from like the podcast that Jace has done. And like, just like with the shop, like getting organized in your shop, like it's about getting organized and just taking care of yourself, but you also have to be honest with yourself too about things. And then onto the marriage side of it, like you have to really sit and talk and be honest and open to each other.
We've talked more in the last 6 months than we have in the last 10 years, I would say. In our marriage, and talking about things, talking about our daughter, talking about our marriage, talking about this farm, our future plans, where do we see things going, and what our goals are. And listening to Jace's lessons and there, the learning part of it with like, I really enjoy the code, the second part, the code. If you can't be honest with yourself, you can't be honest with anyone. That's really it opened my eyes up, is like, and I was happy when Jay said I was the same way. I was lying to people and lying to myself. I was too. Shit, I tried to make things look better than they were. They weren't. They were horrible. You admit that, you can finally make a change.
Yeah. Well, it's just how we've been taught and trained, growing up. It's no different than, my dad or the way I was brought up. It was just, that's kind of the structure we were born and raised into. But like, it's just a problem. Like, if you're not truthful with yourself, you're living in this fantasy land, and no one's like, the reason for the network too to be created is to create that space, to create the conversation of what is your truth, or talk about the real and raw problems where you can't just go to your neighbor, you can't go to your friends to talk about the real and raw financial things. That was the biggest thing for me. Like, I didn't find a way to do it.
You're always worried, like in this whole with agriculture and everything, because I wasn't from an agriculture family. So like how cutthroat of a business, like with letting your neighbors know what you're doing, and just like cash rent and like renting ground, and like you don't want your neighbors knowing your problems, because then they're just going to go and tell everybody else. And so now you try to work through that and, make them come up to you and say, hey, what are you doing? Like, make them interested in what you're doing, because you're doing something different and you're succeeding at it is going to make other people want to know what you're doing.
100%.
If you're always telling them that you're succeeding, then they just know that you're trying to make it look better than it is.
Right.
Honestly. So keep them in suspicion.
Guys, through it. Like, we're almost our own worst enemy when it comes to this, because it honestly comes down to this comparison game of each other. Newer combine, newer pickups, and it's just,
yes,
we go back, honest, and it's truthful. Okay, we go behind each other's back to talk about, okay, this is what this guy is doing, or he's struggling, and really pick out our weak points within each other. It's sad, but it's true.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a partner or have somebody that's truly on your back in your farming operation today that you can share something with and know that you're fighting like together, that's rare. Like I didn't have any of that back home, and I don't see that. And it's honestly the truth of it's honestly the truth of it today.
When you start searching your soul and you really start thinking about who your friends are, your true friends, you start to realize, and that's one thing that Jace talks about a lot in his podcasts, in the trade, in the learning and everything else, is you really start to weed out the negativity. And that is something that the funny thing is, we used to be the kind of the negative ones. We had people that were moving away from us because we were so negative, because everything just sucked. And as things progressed and got better, we just learned to focus on the positives, and you start to just move away from the people. I mean, I still got friends that every time I get together with them, all they talk about is how much they hate this and they hate that and they hate summer and they hate the heat and they're tired of this and tired of this. And it's just like, you just disconnect. It's not that you want to, you just feel like you just don't want to hear it anymore. You miss the friendship, but you don't miss the negativity. So
when you don't get influence, or you don't get energized after that, it's just like there's a point where you just it just doesn't serve you.
Well, and it really the mindset, like all the things about the mindset, that is a huge thing, like with all of this, because like with anything, if you're not in the mindset to make a difference, or if you're only going to go halfway, you're not going to complete it. So you have to really mentally prepare to want to do better for yourself, for your family, and for, your legacy to continue on. Otherwise, it's just, not going to happen. But like with the negativity too, we, with just in friendships and things, like I kind of started working on my mindset a little bit before Rusty did, just because I was trying to like see what I could do to help him when he was low. And I'm just like starting to point out conversations to him. I'm like, did you just listen to this conversation with your friend? I'm like, there was nothing positive that came out of that conversation. I'm like, it was negative. And I'm like, you really need to like reassess this and like take a bigger picture, look at the bigger picture here of like the people that are making positive influences on you, and like the networking within the legacy farmer has been great. Like accountability partners and things like that have been great. I wish I could be a part of the women's a little bit more often, and I look forward to doing that. But like the women's side is just as much of a, we have struggles too, just like our husbands do as well. But the networking has been great, because you can talk to somebody that's going through something similar to you.
100%. So last thing I want to ask you guys, if you were to give some advice or say something to someone who is sitting on the fence about joining Legacy Farmer, what would be something that you would tell them?
Well,
we didn't even talk about like going into talking our first like thing with Joni, because we didn't, know what the initial cost was going to be. But we just wouldn't.
It was funny because I don't know. And everybody's operation is different, but I took the cost, I divided it out over my acres. And that's how I do numbers. I do everything by the acre. And it's like, well, that's nothing. Okay, if this just doing this can lower my interest rate 0.5% in my $1 million operating note a year, and my my $5 million of land loans that I have or whatever, it's just like, okay, this is no issue. We're just going to do it. Yeah. And but everybody's situation is different. That money's 2 years ago we'd been like, oh, no, we can't. And now I don't know. But getting to where we're at now, it makes it so much clearer. And that's kind of where. Here's, I guess, to answer that question. and this came up in a podcast, but it's stuck in my mind. And I have told a lot of people this, Andrew. If you look at your balance sheet and look at your list of assets, what is the most valuable asset on your farming operation? And I see this all the time on Facebook, on these Midwest farming pages and stuff like that. What's the most valuable asset? Oh, it's the grain dryer, it's the combine, it's the planter. No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's you.
Yeah.
And if you aren't willing to invest some money into the best asset you have in the farm, I just spent $22,000 rebuilding the 2011 9870 John Deere combine because it's a damn good combine. I have no intention of trading it. And we make a payment on it every year in the machine shop now, and that's just what we do. And I don't even question it because I know it has to be done. We do that with a planter too. If I can't stick $20,000, $30,000 a year into myself via my mental health, my physical health, my financial coach, which I guess I got to consider you guys financial coach, life coach. We've got an attorney that we work with. We have an accountant that we work with. I have a grain merchant that I work with, or my market advisor. If you are not willing to invest in yourself, then you might be in the wrong business, and you're going down a dark path. You're going to go down the rabbit hole. So take care of yourself and find the right people that can help you. And I guess I firmly believe that the people we work with, Legacy Farmer, are the right people for us. And I would strongly urge other people to consider it because it's a good program, and there's just a lot of insight. And there's
what you said there about you making yourself the greatest asset. Like, we've been taught and trained not to ever invest money into ourselves, never take care of ourselves. We talked today on the boardroom call about taking care of our body, and different areas of that. But until you're willing to commit to yourself and commit to your own future, because if you think about it, you're the one who produces, you're the one who goes out and produces the business. And if you can't go out and produce at the highest level that would be possible, you are leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table because you're the one that has to go out and get it, right? You're the one who's going to be able to produce or make the connections, work the way that you need to with whatever that might be, right?
Yep.
But you have to be the one, and nailed it perfectly with that. Yeah.
Well, like I said, you don't question payroll when you pay your labor. You don't question the maintenance bills when you're fixing equipment. It's another line item expense as far as I'm concerned for our operation. It's just part of our structure now, and it's fine. I don't even. It's not even a mindset. I mean, it's not even a concern anymore. So it's just, it's a good program. You guys have a great program. I'm really looking forward to some of the things that are coming out in the future with the software you guys are starting to roll out. I'm assuming it's still in beta form, and it's going to be a little while before we see the actual program, but I'm optimistic about it. It's what we're looking for. So
100%. All right, guys. Awesome. Well, thank you both for taking the time today to share your experiences in Legacy Farmer.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the help.
Awesome.